Rita got bit, and she's starting to turn, and Rikita is doing everything she can to stop her from turning. And then who shows up? Holy crap! It's the thing from the thing. It's Foghorn Leghorn's head, perched on a spine, walking toward her, and it's real mad and wacky. And Rita grabs it, swings it around, and kills it, and crashes it on a counter.
Kills Uncle Les.
She kills Uncle Les. Thank God. And then
gone.
The baby kills Rita in a really disgusting way. And then the lady in the lamp who got shoved up into the ceiling
with the light in
her head explodes, and now there's fire. And then Rita turns on the gas, and then everything starts bursting in flames.
And I will say, to Rita's credit, she rolls with this whole thing.
Yeah.
It does not overwhelm her. She doesn't go, oh, somebody save me. She saves herself. And I really respect that about a lot of Peter Jackson's heroines. They save themselves.
I'm looking at the movie right now as we quote it, and oh my God, the mother is disgusting. She has burst out from the fourth floor, ladies and gentlemen. And
she's a Freudian nightmare.
She is a rat king, whatever you call it.
I would definitely say that.
And it's like...
he is mutated.
Oh, Peter Jackson. Why?
Why?
Just Richard Taylor, all you guys. And Fran Walsh, why did you go with this? Why?
What? Because they had to map this out and then film it.
And it's this giant prosthetic creature that has...
David brought up a good point. He said it has a long snout.
It's a long snout.
And we were like, why does it have a snout? And David, you said...
yeah, it looks like the rat monkey.
Oh.
It looks like a gigantic version of the rat monkey, and it's even claymation animated.
You can continue.
And but it's like, in the form of Lionel's mother, and for what it's like evolved somehow too, because it can now talk.
And so, Angie, I'm going to hand it to you. Before I do, Rikita and Lionel are finally together.
You think they're safe.
Think they're safe, and Lionel says, wait. She's like, what? I have to go get Mum or something.
No.
What does he say?
He says something to the effect like, it's not over, or we're not safe yet. And then he says, haven't seen Mum around
yet. And so then, Angie, what happens?
Okay,
the lady...
so to not get too graphic, there's some Freudian imagery that happens. But basically, the creature of the mother comes out, and she won't let him go.
Yeah, and they climb up to the roof.
They climb up to the roof, and it's kind of this face-off, and she kind of consumes him, and you think,
wait. It's revealed, though.
Oh, I thought the reveal was after the consummation.
The reveal's before the consummation.
It's before, okay, sweet. So he basically confronts the mother and says, why didn't you tell me? And why didn't you tell me that you said that Dad left us? And Dad didn't leave us. No. He has a flashback, and all those little clues, the gun they gave us in the first act, we get to use it now. Him being afraid of the water, him seeing the blonde woman under the water, him finding the body in the attic, skeletons in the attic, literally. You find out that the dad fell in love with someone, and when the mom found out, she killed them both, and he watched them drown. That's why he has this fear of water. Yeah. So it's like him facing his fear is him also facing his fear of the mother and the very unhealthy control that this Norman Bates-like mom has over him. And then she tries to keep him from leaving. I won't get too graphic with this, but it's like she tries to wrap her like entrails around him and keep him. And
so Foghorn Leghorn is literally the guy from Austin Powers that says, get in my belly.
Yes,
and that should have been said by this mother creature that we see here.
And of course,
essentially the question that Nicodemus the Pharisee asked
how
Jesus.
How can someone be born? Why?
And we get it here.
Yes, David, that is an excellent way to say that. So,
Peter Jackson recreates that in this movie and answers that very question.
And I feel like it's that not only does he confront her with the truth that she's lied to him all these years, but also he has to leave. He has to leave. He has to get away from this person who's gaslit him and deceived him and whatnot. And so he eventually gets away, second rebirth. He gets away.
Second.
And how does she get destroyed? I will put that over to you boys.
All right, so he does a forced cesarean on his mother, and gets out of there, and then she falls through the roof backward, and Lionel is born again.
And this house that was her shrine is destroyed.
Is destroyed.
Destroyed by fire, destroyed by zombies. But we don't know what happens to the baby.
Yeah, that's the interesting part. The mother falls into the burning house and is consumed, but we see
Before this, we see the baby crying in the kitchen after Foghorn Leghorn's dead because there's nobody else to have fun with.
And giggling.
And
He giggles
giggling.
too.
And we don't see the baby. And then after this, Bakita and Lionel thankfully are able to get out of there. They escape, and the firemen finally show up.
With vintage fire
With
carts,
vintage
by the way.
fire carts, with
Yes.
wooden ladders, all the
It was
rage.
a well done production. I'm not gonna
And
knock
then
anything on that.
We find Bakita and Lionel. Thank the Lord they're safe. He throws the emblem away, which he used to cesarean out of his mom, and then they kiss, they make out, and they walk away, and that's Dead Alive, ladies and gentlemen.
And that's Dead Alive. What are your
What's
man.
the interesting thing though is so we actually see the baby. We actually
In the
see the
house.
baby in the house after all the other zombies are dead. The mom has died.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
so
really?
the
Yeah.
baby is actually left over.
Yeah.
The baby
It
is
could
left
come
over. And for whatever reason, this movie did not get a sequel.
I wonder why, David.
So I guess we'll never know what happens to that baby.
Yeah, it's just sitting in the kitchen or it's right behind the flames crying, and that's all we see.
Yeah.
Well, I also think like it's this. I think like that house was like I'm so interested in stuff on the outside, and that it has to be destroyed because it's a lie. Everything is a lie, and like just as sometimes fire people don't understand that in the Bible when it says like God's a fire, sometimes things do need to be purified. And I kind of took that away from this movie. There's a lot to take away from this movie.
Yeah.
But I was trying to be like, okay, as an educator, if I had to analyze this, what would I say? And I feel like it really is both movies that we looked at are about coming of age,
Yeah.
are about growing up. And I think the vampires do it less effectively and Lionel does it more effectively. You know, that the vampires are kind of in What We Do in the Shadows are still the same people at the end. They still need to finish adulting. And that Lionel kind of does. And I like go with Paquita. She just rolls with it. That's your ride or die woman, man. It's like
Yeah.
she stayed with him through all of it. And she rolled with the punches and she didn't compromise her character. Whereas everybody is making these like, save yourselves. You know, she doesn't. And she goes back to help him. And stuff. I haven't seen Mom yet, you know.
I haven't seen Mom yet.
Yeah, I think it's like, and she is willing to walk with him down the street.
And I just wanted to shout out really quickly the cinematography, the camera work. It's all very like Evil Dead-esque in a lot of
Yes,
ways,
the ratio.
but it's very it's very like tasteful and very. At first, you're like, this is really messy because
is
it's all like
bizarre.
weird shots and things like that. But it's, I think, tastefully done. And I really like it because it gives you Evil Dead vibes. But
Yeah.
what do you think, David? What do you think of the production and all
Yeah,
that
I
good
think
stuff?
this movie is remarkable in that it's so.
It is very.
So
it is very remarkable.
It's so over the top.
Oh God, yes.
So like terribly cringy and just campy
Yeah.
and ridiculous in every single way, and yet it's not a mistake. It's all done
It's
very
intentional.
intentionally because if you actually look at the production, everything
Had to be mapped out.
everything is super well done.
Had to be storyboarded. Had to go in with all the effects for all these crazy scenes. And I think that was where it's like, you know what, Fran Walsh and Peter Jackson, you have my respect. You know, it's interesting when they asked Sean Astin why he wanted to be in Lord of the Rings. He said, well, it's because of my father. One of my favorite Peter Jackson movies, which is pretty much as campy, is called The Frighteners from 2006. Because he did Heavenly Creatures, which is the one that put him on the map with Kate Winslet. And then he did about the murder in New Zealand. And then he did Frighteners. And Frighteners is about Michael J. Fox, who after going through a traumatic experience and losing his wife, he can see ghosts. And Sean Astin's father, John Astin, who was the original
Oh,
Gomez in the Addams Family,
That's right.
went down to play this old cowboy ghost that is like stuck. And so Michael Jackson lives with all these ghosts, and they all died at different times. And they all died in different ways. And all of a sudden, it's a murder mystery and all these things. And when John Astin came back, he told his son, he goes, if you ever have a chance to work with Fran Walsh and Peter Jackson, you do it.
Interesting.
He said, I've never worked with a husband and wife team that are so loving, so supportive. They never lose their cool.
Aw.
They are on track. They're a team working together,
Mm.
and they make it happen.
Yeah.
And he said, if you ever get a chance to work with the two of them, do it.
Huh.
And that was why Sean Astin went to New Zealand to do it.
Interesting.
And I think it's interesting. We watch these campy movies like, this is the guy that gave us Lord of the Rings. But I think it's like you have to hone your craft.
Yeah.
And I feel like this movie, if you could storyboard the bizarreness of this movie, you can do Tolkien. Because frankly, this is some complicated stuff.
Yeah.
And we watched it so you didn't have to.
Yeah.
But I will definitely
Mm.
say I respect the art form. And even sometimes, even though like Evil Dead may not be your art form, it doesn't mean it's not somebody's.
Yeah.
Or it's somebody honing their craft. And I really think like all of these movies that led up to Lord of the Rings were Peter Jackson and his wife doing this litmus test to create this art until it was this art that's going to survive for a century. It's the adaptation of a dream.
And I would probably say that the reason why a lot of this stuff that like, I personally like it or I connect with is probably because there's a lot of things you can appreciate in it, like the camera work and stuff like that. But
Oh,
also
yeah.
you see the kind of like, especially in the first Evil Dead, David, like the hunger of Sam Raimi and the whole crew, and them like the want to get this film made,
Yes.
and
That
just
this is our vision.
that this is their vision. And not only that, but like they went through hell and high water
Oh,
to get
they
it
did.
finished. And I would imagine this would be a similar case. And it's cool that this film, it's definitely homaging a lot of the old B movies,
Yeah.
but
from the
definitely
50s.
homaging, like, you could definitely see a lot of the inspirations on the sleeve of this film. I mean, you got Evil Dead for sure, but also it's just horror and comedy together, which kind of just
Yeah.
never really always works, but
As a
they make
genre.
it work as a genre, but they make it work. And
Kind of
it's
like
also
outer space Western.
slapstick,
Doesn't always
like
work.
him getting slid into the next room and the radio turns on.
Yeah.
And it just so happens to be a radio show about a mother talking to her son. And it's like, what? What is this? Why is this happening? It's so ridiculous.
But those little details add like nuance to it.
And those kind of things tell me and communicate to me that this was well thought out and they
Yeah.
wanted this. They had a plan.
The pacing and the
The
tone.
pacing's great in this.
The pacing's great. The
Dude.
tone of it is bizarre.
Very weird.
But there's no weird shifts where it's like, oh, that doesn't make sense. Everything pretty much makes sense. It's just a really weird story.
super weird.
Yeah, it's like the things that happen in the movie are utterly bizarre and beyond the pale, but within the
Yes.
context of everything that's happening, they still make sense.